don't invest in something because it's sexy. Like you hear about, 50 Cent making $1 gazillion off vitamin water. Like, don't go buy a water company because you think that's sexy, or throwing all your money into Bitcoin or GameStop right now because that sounds cool. The boring investments are going to do better justice for you.
Welcome to the Midland Money Mindset Show. This is a podcast about the financial, money, and recreational mindset needed to successfully plan for and live your best life before and through retirement. Let's dive into today's show. I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset Show and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Today's guest is Greg Camarillo, a retired NFL wide receiver and currently the coordinator of student athlete development at the University of San Diego. Greg Camarillo is well known for receiving a 64-yard touchdown pass in overtime from Cleo Lemon in 2007 against the Baltimore Ravens to lead the Miami Dolphins to victory. Following his 8-year NFL career, Greg earned a master's degree in educational leadership at San Diego State University and moved into the role of the coordinator of student athlete development, something he always wanted to do, working with other collegiate athletes. Greg is also an on-air analyst for NBC7 San Diego, regularly appearing on Football Night in San Diego and Sports Wrap OT. Listen in as Greg shares insights into the NFL and the life as a player and planning for after the game. Well, hello, everybody. Larry Sprung here, and I have the pleasure of being with Greg Camarillo, retired NFL wide receiver and currently the coordinator of student athlete development at the University of San Diego. Thanks for joining us today, Greg.
Larry, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. And just to give our listeners an idea, you had a nice career in the NFL. Everybody always wonders, what's involved? What was your path to making it there?
Yeah, I definitely not the common path. So I was a walk-on going to college, thinking that maybe I'll get a play in college and I'll be happy to have ever touched the field. And then had a decent career. But then at the end of my college career, I was not a draft guy. I was not a combine guy. I was not really going to get much attention. And through a connection, I got a chance to try out with the San Diego Chargers. So I was given 5 practices over 3 days at a mini camp to prove my worth, was able to show that I had enough promise, and that got an invite to training camp. And then from there, made the practice squad, and the next year made the team. So it was quite a journey, but I was given a lot of great opportunities and just capitalized each time I got one.
That's awesome. You're the second NFL player that we've had on this show, which I think him, Elijah Holder we had on the show earlier. And he had a similar path. He wasn't drafted. He kind of made his way onto the team. And I think it's ironic that we've had 2 people like that on the show, but that's not really a common path to making it there, is it?
No, not at all. So of the year that I had a tryout, there are probably 15 guys they bring as tryout position. And I was the only one I think that got signed. And they need bodies for minicamp. You don't want your vets out there getting beat up. You're a future Hall of Famer. So they just bring in these random bodies. But it's a shot, and it's not a good shot, but all you ask is for a little bit of opportunity, and you got to try to capitalize on that. And the Holder and I have in common is our Stanford guys. And so I always I take a lot of pride in the fact that Stanford guys, in my mind, are very driven individuals because you're trying your best at school and you're trying your best at your sport. And I think that when you give somebody like that an opportunity, they're going to use that same drive to capitalize on that opportunity. Not saying guys from other schools couldn't do it as well, but That's just my promoting Stanford guys as well.
There you go. Yeah. So, did you even think for a moment when you made it through that tryout, you made it to the team, that you were going to have the career that you had? Or, did you think, oh, man, this is great, but I don't know how long this is going to last, and I'm going to have to make the most of it?
Oh, yeah. Every step of the way, I thought that was the end of the road. So I get my mini camp tryout. This is in 2005. So, this camera phone sucked back then, but I took a super pixelated photo of my portable locker with a jersey that says Camarillo, and it's a number 4 jersey. And for deep football fans, they know that's not an eligible number. So not being able to catch a pass in a number 4, yet being a wide receiver, it doesn't all add up. They didn't have big plans for my future. And I was number 4 for an entire year on the practice squad. But it just shows that we'll give this guy number 4. He can't wear it in a game, but he'll probably never make it to a game. And I had the same mindset. I thought, let me just enjoy this experience. This will be great. And then I got signed for training camp. My buddy said, that's the best summer internship you'll ever have. I was going to be in the NFL for a summer. I thought that was amazing. And it just kind of worked out each step of the way. And it also bought me time to improve so I could be a better receiver and actually get on the field eventually.
That is awesome. That's, I think it's great when we hear about people who take opportunities, whether it be in a sport, an athlete doing it, or even in business and taking an opportunity that they otherwise wouldn't have had and really turn it into something much larger than they ever expected. So congratulations for that. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Who were some of your influences and mentors who helped you navigate through your journey and your time during the NFL? Because as somebody who wasn't expecting to go there, I'm sure you really had to look up to people, and there had to be people there that you really relied on to help you navigate that whole process and your career there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am a product of the people in and around me. And absolutely no way am I a self-made football player or nothing like that. I was able to play in the NFL because of the support I got along the way. So I always had good relationships with my coaches. My parents were super supportive the entire time when I was exploring different colleges and I was exploring different routes to play football. But for me, the biggest impact was always just watching someone that I wanted to be like and trying to emulate what they do. So every step of the way, I got a chance to watch guys at high levels. My first year in college, Troy Walters won the Biletnikoff at Stanford, was an amazing wide receiver. So I came the year after him, so I got to watch tape of him, which was awesome. And then I had another senior, a guy named Durrani Pitts, who was, we'll say all league. I'm not exactly sure. He was an awesome wide receiver. And so I just would sit back and watch what he's doing and then try to emulate that. And the same thing in the pros. My first year in, Keenan McCardell was a veteran wide receiver who was on my team. And I just watched, what is this guy doing that's made him play for a decade or however long he played? And so that's always been kind of my mindset is, who do I want to be like? Who do I see myself that I can actually fit in that person's shoes? What are they doing that's made them successful? And what can I take away from their lessons?
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson, not only for sports, but life and business also.
Absolutely.
If people would just kind of take a look and find somebody that they aspire to be like and just kind of be a sponge and take it all in, it's tremendous. You brought up something about your parents a moment ago, and I have kids who are student athletes. My 14-year-old, who's soon to be 15-year-old, still has very high aspirations for professional sports. What's the conversation like with your parents at the point where, hey, you got into Stanford, you're playing football, but then it's coming to the end and you still have these aspirations for the NFL?
Yeah.
What kind of support did you receive there?
Great support. My parents, they could sense that I had a drive to keep playing football. My last 3 years in college, although I enjoyed them, we sucked as a team. We won 10 games over 3 years, which is trash. So I had that fire to keep playing, and they were going to support whatever avenue I went. And even if they had their hesitations, they didn't voice them. And so I left Stanford over Christmas break or holiday break in January, somewhere around that. Flew to Long Island in your land over there.
There you go.
And tried out with the New York Dragons.
Yeah.
The arena football team.
Yeah.
I wanted to play football so bad that I would play any level. Arena, Canada, NFL, Europe at the time. I didn't think the NFL was a realistic shot. So I spend 3 days in New York, and they say free housing, but there's an old, boarded up asylum that's out there that was, I can't remember what it was for, but it was hasn't been touched in 50 years. It looks like a straight
It might have been Pilgrim State or something like that. Or
it looks like a horror movie. And the housing is like the old staff housing in the back. So your free housing, literally is a horror movie.
Right.
And then I'm enjoying practice. It's, you work out at 5 a.m. at the local Gold's Gym. It's not professional football, the dream. But I was so thirsty to play. They offered me a contract for $26,000 to come join training camp and try to make the team out of college. $26,000. I thought I was going to be a gazillionaire off of that. Right. It was amazing. But I hadn't graduated college. And so my parents didn't say anything, but They had raised me to know better. I couldn't leave college early to go chase football and 26 grand. So I decided to go back to school, finish college, and then the shot in the NFL worked out. But that's just an example of my parents saying, go for it. You have this dream of playing football, go for it. Fortunately, I made the right decision, but they were supportive all the way through.
That's awesome. And I think that's a lesson that we as parents who have kids who are playing sports and whatnot, even if you ended up not making it, what is it, a year of your life at such an early age, there's really nothing ventured, nothing gained at that point. So I think that's a good lesson for everybody. Now, you bring up the lack of success when you were at Stanford, and I'm sure you get this question a lot and talk about it, which is when you were playing for the Dolphins, you had a very memorable reception, the 64-yard TD reception that you caught against the Ravens that prevented the Miami Dolphins from going 0-16, right?
Yeah.
Another tough season. What's your mindset going into that game and actually into that play as you executed it to prevent you from going over in that season?
Yeah, well, at the professional ranks, there's a little more of a selfish attitude than in college because you're looking out for your own career. In college, next year is basically guaranteed as long as you're not graduating. And the pros next week is not guaranteed. So there's two mindsets. One is we need to get this victory as a team. We've been 13 straight weeks getting our rears kicked, and it was incredibly frustrating and draining week in and week out. You put everything you have into physically preparing for a game, emotionally preparing for a game, giving it all on your field and losing. Like, it sucks.
Did it help that your experiences at Stanford not being as successful? Did that help you work through that a little better or no?
No, that's a great question. No, I hope I don't ever get used to losing and comfortable with it. But, you have that team mindset. I got to get this victory for us. But then in the NFL, you have this mindset. I have to protect my own career. I got to go out there and do the very best I can for my own career. And the losing factor actually helped my career because once you're out of the playoff hunt, it's not about like, how can we prepare for this year? It's how can we prepare for future years? So we traded away a wide receiver. Another wide receiver got hurt. And then suddenly I'm fourth on the depth chart and ready to go. And that's just the week they called my number.
Right. Listen, I mean, I guess there was some luck, because who knows, right? If number 1, 2, or 3 were in that play, they may not have been able to make that catch.
Yeah, it's funny. 1, 2, and 3 were actually in. So we called 4 wide receivers. So I was the fourth. There was no one else to go to. And this was 2007. It was not as common as it is now to have 4 wide receivers on the field. But like we talked about earlier, is with football opportunities, I learned kind of the hard way in college when I was given an opportunity to play as a freshman, but I was not ready to play as a freshman. I failed at my opportunity. That if an opportunity does arise again, I need to be ready. And this was a golden opportunity that they put me out there as the 4th wide receiver. And I was 100% ready and scored a touchdown, finally got a victory. And now I get to be a part of fun Dolphin history. Memories. Yeah.
Did that have any effect or change to your career in any way?
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge catalyst and a huge point that propelled me forward. So one, it showed coaches that going into that game, I had 1 catch for 2 yards. So like my career is as wide as this computer screen that we're talking on. And so no one really knew, could we trust Greg on the field in a clutch situation? We've never been tested. We'd never know. So that gave coaches confidence in me. That gave teammates confidence in me. That gave confidence for myself.
Sure.
And so that was a big step. Yes, we can trust Greg on the field. So the next week we went up to play the Patriots, and I'm getting more reps on the field, but not like, let's throw Greg out there and throw him a bunch of balls.
Right.
But I was getting into it with, I think it was Asante Samuel, one of their cornerbacks. I was just out there to block. Him and I were just starting quarterbacks that want to cover don't like to be blocked by a backup wide receiver. It's just like, who's this pest? Get off of me. So we were going at it. And then, they called a 1 receiver personnel, which is 98% of the time a run play. So I asked my receiver coach, can I go get him? And they throw me out there. And it turns out that it is just the most beautiful double move play for a wide receiver to catch a touchdown instead of a run block. And I catch a touchdown. So 2 weeks in a row, I've got touchdowns, and that propelled me forward to actually getting passes intentionally thrown to me and becoming a more trusted piece of the offense.
Right. How much of it is confidence driven as far as when you're out there and playing? I mean, you said that clearly that 64-yard pass added confidence to a lot of people, including yourself. And then next week, you're in a similar spot. How much of a player's success do you feel is attributed to that confidence factor?
A huge part. And it's mostly can the coaches trust you to do what they want on the field all of the time, or most of the time, consistency. So I became a starting receiver the next year, and it was not because the highlights were amazing, because they're not. I don't do the same things that the most athletic receivers do, but there was just a higher level of consistency that coaches could trust me. If we need Greg to do this, 97% of the time, and I made that number up, he's going to do exactly what we're asking. We're not going to ask him to do the most amazing things, but he is going to be the most consistent receiver. And that's what got me on the field. If a coach can trust that you are going to follow the game plan, that you're going to follow the play, you're going to know the adjustments, you have a better chance of you playing than someone that has a highlight one play, but then totally messes up the next play.
Right. Agreed. So let's take a shift for a second. When people think about playing in the NFL, I think there's this kind of utopia that they just think about those that are making these huge salaries. What is something that the average person doesn't understand about the way players get paid in the league?
Yeah. Well, you don't make anything I shouldn't say anything. You don't make much in training camp or the preseason. So all those folks that have season tickets and get charged full price for the preseason games, that goes straight to the owner's pocket. So we're making, I don't know, maybe it wasn't a matter of hundreds of dollars for a preseason game.
Right.
Which, I mean, is just part of the job. It's an audition. But what I think fans would appreciate understanding is what it's like to be traded. So I spent 3 years in Miami. I'm going into training camp of my 4th season there. And I'm just a regular day. I'm in regular meetings and I get a little tap on the shoulder. Hey, Greg, the GM wants to meet with you. And normally, if they say that, they say, bring your playbook, and then it's a wrap. When they say bring your playbook, it's ugly. But they didn't say bring your playbook. So I'm curious what's going on there. I go up there, and it's about 9, 10 a.m., and GM says, hey, Greg, do you know why you're up here? And no. Well, we just traded you to Minnesota. And so your life gets flipped upside down. I owned a house in Florida. My wife now was my fiance. Then had just started graduate school, had a dog in Florida. Like my life was in Florida. And at 10 a.m., I'm told I'm traded. My flight's at 2. So you have to pack up your entire life, figure out the next plan, and be on a plane to your new city in 4 hours. And so it's a whirlwind. I mean, I'm not saying that to ask for sympathy. Oh, poor guy, he had to go make $1 million in Minnesota. Right. But it just, it gives you kind of a better feel as to what goes on when someone's traded, instead of just thinking, oh man, this will be great for my fantasy team.
Right. I mean, you said earlier, a lot of your play and your abilities and drive comes from that confidence. So at that point, it's a little bit of a whirlwind. Like you said, your confidence definitely takes a little bit of a hit because you're like, hey, what's going on here? And now you got to re-energize yourself, get confident in a whole different scheme, a whole different environment with new people. And now you're coming in as the outsider coming in.
Yeah.
So it's like starting from scratch, or you already feel like you're part of the team to some degree because of the camaraderie that you've had with them along the way, even playing against them.
No, the new guy in school, anyone that's ever switched schools understands that feeling. You show up and you may know a guy or two just from past teams and all that, but you are absolutely the new guy in school. You have to learn everything immediately. My first game was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 days after I arrived in Minnesota.
Yeah, you don't have much time.
No, and Brett Favre's my quarterback, so I can't show up and let a Hall of Famer down. I got to get my stuff together. But like I mentioned before, I took pride in that I'm always going to know what to do. So I dove into the playbook, learned what I needed to learn. But you want to prove yourself right away to your teammates. You don't want to think, oh, who's this new guy? He sucks. You want to go out there and do well. And fortunately, in my first preseason game, I did decently well.
Awesome. Well, listen, I want to pivot for a second, in terms of a little bit about life after the game, right?
Yeah.
And you spoke about Brett Favre a little bit earlier. He had a very, very long career, but on average, I think NFL careers are very short.
Yeah.
So how, as a player, do you plan for that? If you know that, hey, the average length is X and it's not very long, Obviously, unless you're a Brett Favre or one of the players that has a very long career in the NFL, how do you prepare for that as a player?
Yeah. So the average career, I think it's like 3-point-something years.
Right.
I'm a believer that you can put 100% into your sport while still preparing for life after. It's not like I can only give football 80, well, I can 20% plan for something else. You can 100% commit to your sport, but you also still have a lot of time in the offseason. The offseason practices are maybe half a day. You get a couple total months off without anything going on. I believe that you can prepare for that next step. And what I did is I just explored different careers. I went to a broadcasting boot camp put on by the NFL. I did informational interviews, thought I wanted to be an athletic director at a college. So I sat down with an athletic director who actually ended up being my boss years later. But I learned that that's not what I wanted to do for a living. So
right.
In the NFL, as an NFL player, you're on this platform that people want to connect with you. And my advice to other guys is just to use that. If that's just, hey, I'm interested in Larry Sprung, I'm interested in what you do every day. Do you mind if I just come sit down at your office for a day? You would probably say yes.
100%.
That's what I want to encourage guys to do, is just find those experiences so that way you have the slightest path paved for where you want to go when you're done. And that doesn't mean you can't still be a football player. Do that 100%. But also, why not, take a couple steps preparing life after football as well.
And for you, the Stanford education doesn't hurt either, right? I mean, when you look at athletes and they pick schools, people who can get the best of both worlds and get a really good education and get the athletic part also helps prepare them as well, right?
Absolutely. The high school football season just started out here in California right now. And I'm looking at where guys have committed. And I see there'll just be a list of schools where it's like football school, strong academic school. And I just want to tell the guy, pick the academic school. You'll still play football. You can still make the NFL. You're going to be okay. But that extra preparation for those, a strong academic school, the networking that you're going to do at that school, that's going to be a huge impact. And Stanford football says you're not making a 4-year decision, you're making a 40-year decision. And so I would love to get it to talk to high school athletes. And it's not necessarily don't look for the greatest athletic opportunity, look for that combination, because that's what's going to open up doors in both directions.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Where actually my son is going to be going in the fall of 2021. He's starting college and he's a hockey player, and he kind of took that same path. He wanted to find that nice balance where he could get a great education, but at the same time continue playing, hockey at a high level. And I think that's a great point. Is the NFL encouraging, or do they have tools in place to help you for life after football, or like you mentioned earlier, or is it very much so that the players are on their own to kind of explore and find those opportunities?
No, the NFL provides some and does an okay job. The NFLPA, our players union, has amazing support. There's all kind of different programs. There's all kind of different internships. There's career counseling. They paid for me to go to graduate school when I was done with football. There are a lot of programs. I think the disconnect and where we hear a lot of guys struggling is that guys aren't taking advantage of that, or guys aren't, I think they're aware of it, but there's a disconnect where football players aren't asking for the assistance, aren't taking advantage of the assistance. And I think it's a football mindset that works for the sport. It's about, just, I'm fine. I'm here for the benefit of the team. I don't need help. Let me power through this. I got this. And so the programs are there, but I'm afraid that football mindset of I'm a tough guy, I don't need help, is stopping guys from fully embracing the support that we have.
Right. I guess there could be more work done on both sides to kind of bring it, bridge that gap a little bit better, I would imagine.
Yeah.
This is the Midland money mindset, and one of the things we talk about is mindset, which we've talked a lot about. I also want to talk about some financial, aspects of it. What's some of the best advice that you were given during your playing career in regards to financial responsibility? You hear a lot of times players who were very successful in the NFL and then they're broke down the line. Yeah. And, it's a very unfortunate thing. Some people have even been taken advantage of by their advisors in certain cases as well, which is another tragedy and should never happen. But what are some of the advice that you got in order to be fiscally responsible?
Yeah, I've always been a cheap guy, so it's not really been a problem. I'm good at saving money, but good advice. So my rookie year, our wide receiver coach sat us down, and it is like super basic, but some guys need that. It was just like, make a list of things you want versus things you need. And it made it very clear, like, okay, a diamond watch. I don't really need that. I want it, but I don't need it. So that was on a very basic level. It's another advice I got that I heard a speaker say that I liked is, don't take care of Greg the kid who wanted something and didn't get something. Take care of Greg in the future. So young Greg wanted a convertible, fast muscle car.
Right.
And now that I actually have some money, don't go back and repair what Greg wanted. Think about 45-year-old Greg and what he may want, and put the money in the pocket for 45-year-old Greg as opposed to 18-year-old Greg. So I thought that was a good mindset. Not what have I missed, but what can I save for in the future? And then the last one was, don't invest in something because it's sexy. Like you hear about, 50 Cent making $1 gazillion off vitamin water. Like don't go buy a water company because you think that's sexy, or throwing all your money into Bitcoin or GameStop right now because that sounds cool. The boring investments are going to do better justice for you.
Right.
And I kind of learned that the hard way. I invested in a vitamin company. Fortunately, someone found out that the guy was fraudulent somewhere along the way, and I got my money back, but it was a early alert. Like,
right.
Be careful what you're doing with your money.
Well, it seems like you took a lot of, those 3 takeaways are tremendous. And I think that they're all good advice, not only for football players. I think they're good advice for everybody in general. I think if you could stick to those 3 rules and use that as a framework to decipher where to go and what to do, I think that those are excellent tools. Does the NFL or the NFLPA kind of give you guys tools like this? Do they put you in front of people that help you with these like symposiums or things like that to help you learn these lessons that you've learned?
We have access to a neutral financial consultant. I'm not sure the exact term, but there is a company that will analyze your investments to make sure that they're sound, and not necessarily giving you advice like buy this, buy that, but just overall advice. And so there are a lot of financial advisors, and you can only imagine when you see a group of 20-something-year-olds that are making millions of dollars, how many people want to contact you to say, I can manage your money. And so you try to build a relationship with someone, you try to trust someone, you use your friends to find out who they trust. And so I have a financial advisor, but I took advantage of the free program to go over my investments with a neutral advisor to make sure we were on the right track. And fortunately we were, and I've been working with the same guy for, must be 15 years or so.
Awesome.
But there are safeguards there. If guys take advantage of them, that can help protect them. We get free background checks. So if I wanted to give Larry Sprung some money to invest,
right,
I can send your name to somebody in the NFLPA. They'll make sure that you haven't been sued by 100 people. Mm-hmm. And there are safeguards there to help us, but that doesn't always block guys from fraud.
Yeah. I mean, I had looked into, I know there's like a screening process if you want to be a quote unquote, and I may be using the wrong word, like approved advisor to NFL athletes. I had looked at that at one time. And quite frankly, I think then NFL and all the major sports, they like working with people that they know and probably have a connection to the game. So I ended up not going that route, but it's good that they give you those tools for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to pivot for a minute to something that happened somewhat recently, and you've been very public about it, which is the death of Vincent Jackson. And you've been talking about the topic of what players go through after their time in the league is done. Can you tell us or explain to the listeners what are some of the biggest struggles that former athletes face? Obviously, we've seen Vincent Jackson is the most recent one. We've seen others in recent years that have died by suicide because of mental illness and CTE. And I'm not even sure if you're aware, but I sit on the national board for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So something very important to me. One of the folks that sits on the board with me is Chris Thomas, which is Solomon Thomas's father, who he lost his daughter, which isn't an NFL athlete. But it's something that's been very talked about. And I think it's something that's becoming more common in all sports as far as what's going on with athletes, their struggles afterwards. What are these struggles that they're seeing? And why are we not doing what we should be doing to prepare them for it?
Yeah, well, I'll give you two of my struggles, add a third one that a lot of guys go through, and then talk about helping with that. So I've retired at 30 after 8 years in the NFL, and it was not like I'm done with football, let me hang up my cleats. It was more like football was done with me, and there were just no longer opportunities. So one of my struggles was identity. So I played 18 years of football before I turned 30. So the vast majority of my life was Greg, the football player. And once you even in high school, but college and the pros, that's kind of your daily drive. That is who you are. That is what people want to talk to you about. If someone finds out you're a football player, all conversations then become about football. And so a huge part of my identity was being a football player. And then suddenly the last day I was cut, that identity is gone. And imagine, taking a part of who you are and it just ceasing to exist. Larry, you're a dad. Imagine if suddenly, and this is a horrible thing to say, so maybe I'll use it. Maybe we'll pivot. You're a financial guy. Imagine suddenly you cannot be a financial guy anymore.
Yeah. Right.
You would be going through, who am I? What do I do next? What is my value? What is my drive? What is my purpose? So you're at a loss to start there. Another part is you've reached this pinnacle. You are at the peak of a career, like literally the very top in the world of your career. And then that's gone and you're starting over. And, you make a lot of money. So you're not starting over totally from scratch. You're doing all right financially. But,
you're 30.
You're 30. I'm laying in bed and I'm
got a long life ahead.
I'm thinking I've got 50 plus years of life to live, hopefully. And will I ever feel this same excitement again? Will I ever have this same drive? Will I ever get that feeling of catching a game-winning pass with millions of people watching me? How will I ever replicate that excitement? So that's a tough thing to deal with. And then kind of we're heading with, why aren't more guys taking advantage of this help? There's this mindset in football that it's the we before the me. Let me push off to the side my personal issues for the benefit of the team. We've got 53 guys on a team. We all need to be pointing in the same direction to achieve our goal. Each person can't bring in their own little issues, and that's physical or at home issues. And so we're taught to suck it up. We're taught to, deal with it on our own, push through it. It's going to be fine. Or even medicate. Like, I had a rib injury and, shoot me up so I can get to practice. You would take Toradol. I took Toradol and Vicodin to go play in a game to the point where I felt high playing a game, which I didn't play well, as you could imagine. But that mindset of, let me take something or let me suck it up. I don't need to worry about my problems. Let me push through. It's going to be fine. Does not work in real life. If you've got substance abuse problems, if you've got mental health problems, if you've got relationship problems, that football player mindset, and maybe it's a broader male mindset or societal mindset of, I don't need to talk about it. Let me just push it off to the side. I'm going to be fine. Let me go about my business. That doesn't work, and you do that with those type of problems that I mentioned, it's only going to get worse and worse. And so I want to see more conversations like we're having. I want to see breaking down that stigma. So guys, there's help out there. I want to encourage guys to go take advantage of it.
So, do you think that how do you change that? Do players need to educate themselves better on what's life going to look like? Is it their responsibility, or do you think some of that, or the vast majority of the responsibility really lies on that of the league and the Players Association to kind of change this culture, so to speak?
Oh, man, I think it's everyone's responsibility. I understand the U.S. is a capitalist society, so the NFL's goal is to make as much money as possible, and they don't necessarily have to take care of their players, but they have the money to, and the NFLPA is who looks out for us, and they do a great job of asking or requesting or demanding that money from the NFL. I think it's more about breaking down that stigma through conversations. If guys can just, former players or guys that are going through it, somebody like Solomon Thomas, who's promoting this mental health awareness, suicide prevention.
100%.
Big, strong, tough, scary guys saying it's okay to go ask for help.
Right.
Having guys like that will help.
And by the way, having the support of his organization and the ownership at the San Francisco 49ers, also not putting him out on a limb by himself, but getting behind him, I think is huge.
Absolutely.
That makes it easier for him and everybody else to say, oh, I can do this too, right?
Absolutely. So the more guys that are doing things like that, the more people that are having conversations like me and you and just making it normal, it's not going to happen overnight, but over time, I think we can break down that barrier to where it is just accepted that, you're comfortable asking for help.
Great. So as a former player, and you've gone through this obviously, and you said you had some struggles yourself, what has helped you? What tools have you used to help you adjust to life after the NFL?
Realizing that you're not going to fill the void of football with one thing. And someone asked me recently, how do you fill that void that football has left in your life? There's no one thing that could just plop it back in there and then that's going to be full. But figuring out what components of football that I miss the most and trying to find those aspects in different parts of my life. One is I enjoyed the excitement and nervousness of the performance of football.
Right.
And then it never goes 100%, but getting to try to do it again. So I do broadcasting now on Sunday nights in San Diego. Football night in San Diego comes on NBC. I get that little bit of excitement, that little bit of nervousness of a performance. It doesn't always go smoothly, but then I get to do it again next week and try again. So that's kind of the performance aspect of football. I always like being a part of a team and in and around athletics. I am a academic counselor at a college, so I am in and around athletics and athletes every single day. And then competition. I love competition, so I signed up for an old man softball league in the neighborhood, an old man soccer league in the neighborhood. So just finding those little components of things that I liked about football. They're not all coming from the same source in my life, but it can plop little small pieces into that void and make it a manageable transition.
Were you able to come to this realization on your own that this is how you could kind of help smooth your transition, or did you actually get assistance in helping you through that process and determining that?
Oh, I got all kind of assistance. I took advantage of all the programs. I like free stuff, and they were giving me free programs to take advantage of. So I took advantage of the NFL paying for graduate school to go kind of find a direction as far as my career. So that's when I found my actual current career. It was because of graduate school. I went to 2 broadcasting boot camps, which allowed me to find a job in broadcasting. I've taken advantage of every health professional there is. So I've had my brain and memory analyzed. I've seen mental health counselors. I have seen orthopedists to check on my body.
Sounds like you should be part of the NFLPA.
I take advantage of all this stuff. That's
I'm
for sure.
thinking you should be the representative of their organization, perhaps.
I'm trying everything out, and some things work and some things don't. But if you don't try it, you'll never know.
Right. I think that's a good point, that football really has afforded you the ability to try out these other things.
Absolutely.
Because if you were a normal person, went to college, found a job, most of us don't have the opportunity to kind of try all these things out because we haven't had enough financial stability in order to kind of do that. So I think that that's a great byproduct of what your experiences have
Absolutely.
been.
It is a huge advantage that I made enough money where I am able to I have time to go find my passion. I don't have to jump into a job because I need a paycheck right away. So I am very grateful for the opportunity and connections that the NFL has brought me to allow me. Academic counselors at universities, we don't make much money. So that's certainly not something you can go do and think, well, I'm just going to get rich off of that. So I am very thankful for that.
Yeah, but it's fulfilling one of those needs which you are missing from football, which is probably very rewarding, and it doesn't have to be financial in that regard.
That's
true. Awesome. Well, listen, Greg, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. And we end every show by asking everyone the same question,
all right,
which is, what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
Oh, all right. What did I do today? Well, it's early over here on the West Coast, but today I've got 3 daughters that are 8, 5, and 3, and they have only seen snow in the summer, just like a little patch of leftover ice.
Right.
But it recently snowed in the mountains outside of San Diego, so we're going to load up the car and go find some snow and throw it at each other and make some snowballs. So that's going to put me in a mindset of, in the middle of a pandemic, finding some fun things to do and building that bond with my family.
That's awesome. And I'm sure they'll probably all be better at catching those snowballs than throwing them just because of their dad, right?
I hope so. We'll find out.
Well, listen, Greg, it's been a pleasure having you. If somebody wants to connect with you or find you on social media, and we'll have this in the show notes, where's the best place for them to reach out?
Yeah, on Twitter, @Catch Camarillo. I love Twitter. I love engaging with other tweeters, so hit me up.
Awesome. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you being open, honest, and having this dialogue because I think, like you said, we're in alignment here. The more we talk about it, the more players and athletes and just people in general understand that your brain is part of your health. And if we talk about it, that there is help out there and there are opportunities to make sure that your mental health is stable. And the more we talk about it, lower that stigma, it'll make a better world for all of us. So thank you for continuing that conversation and make it a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. I enjoyed the conversation.
I want to thank Greg Camarillo for being a guest on the Midland Money Mindset Show. Greg has taken a notable career in the NFL and now has turned his focus to helping the next generation of players. In addition to helping young players chart their path to reaching their dreams, Greg has also become an advocate for players to understand what comes after football. Very admirable and needed work. Greg can be found active on Twitter @CatchCamarillo, and we'll have his Twitter handle in the show notes for you as well. Thank you for joining us this week on the Midland Money Mindset. Make sure you visit our website at midlandfinancial.com and be sure to smash the subscribe button so you don't miss a show. We encourage you to help others find our valuable content. And listen, please, don't keep us a secret. You can also schedule an Is There a Fit call right from our website or by using the link that you'll find in the description section of your podcast player or app. Be sure to join us for our next episode to learn more about the mindset needed to successfully plan for and live your best life before and through retirement.
The opinions voiced in the Midland Money Mindset Show with Lawrence Sprung are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy ensures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Guests on the Midland Money Mindset Show are not affiliated with CWM LLC.